Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming, both in person and on Zoom. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Lara. I'm the Marine Officer with the Manx Wildlife Trust. And this evening, rather than listening to me talk about seals, I thought I'd get an expert in. So we have a lovely lady down in Cornwall called Sue Sayer, who is one of our, well, we work very closely with Sue down in Cornwall, believe it or not. And I won't spoil it, but I'll let Sue talk about that later in her talk. But she's an internationally renowned researcher and author. And for over 20 years, she's been working tirelessly on seals around Cornwall, watching them from both land and from sea. And she's an incredible encyclopedia when it comes to seals and things like that. And I'm really, really pleased she was kind enough to join us this evening to give us a really informative talk about seals around Cornwall and seals in general and why they're so awesome. So I'm going to pass you all over to Sue. So thanks very much, Sue. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's really lovely to meet you. I'm very impressed that you're doing a hybrid talk. I think that's really to be commended. So well done. And yeah, I'm here to hopefully pass on some inspiration about seals. And Lara, you're so a seal expert, so you can take that back. What I'd like to be able to do is for you to appreciate how iconic our seals are, to try and give you a little bit of an insight to help think seal. And, you know, seals are a natural heritage asset for us. They are a national treasure, and we are hoping to communicate that tonight. Before I go any further, though, I just want to show you that my photos are not top quality photos. Okay, I don't take professional shots of seals. I use cameras as tools. My photos look like they're close up, but I am always miles away. I'm always on a cliff top. I'm always on the coast path. I never want to get up close and personal with seals. And as a result of that, I have to have ridiculously big bridge cameras. So this was actually taken with a 2000mm lens, and I've since upgraded to a 3000mm lens, not 300, 3000mm. So that's why my photos are not sharp. Okay. I'm hoping to talk to you about seals and people. I'm hoping there'll be something of interest for you. We are a registered charity. We are a 1% for the Planet charity as well, and we're registered by the fundraising regulator. We do have various email addresses for sightings. If you're interested in volunteering, you can volunteer with the Isle of Man Wildlife Trust, Manx Wildlife Trust, but you can train with us if you wish, and it's all free. If you're interested in volunteering remotely, we do lots of digital volunteering, or if you visit Cornwall, we'd like to hear from you. And we do boat surveys as well if you're visiting down here. I always have to thank our funders because we are hopeless without any money. I'm a full-time volunteer, and most of the people who are key in our organisation are volunteers. But volunteers, as you well know, need recruiting, looking after, upskilling and keeping happy, because happy volunteers stop volunteering, and those are our funders who make that possible. My philosophy changed fairly recently. As I think it's always been this, but I suddenly had a word for it. My philosophy is informed by the ecozoic. And the ecozoic is just an era of time. If we hopefully leave the Anthropocene and move into the ecozoic, it means we understand the need to share our seas. So that's what informs me. My work is nothing about stopping anyone doing anything, but it's always about encouraging people to have the knowledge to do what they want to do, but without impact on the marine environment. And the ecozoic talks about us as one species within a planetary ecosystem. And as our species, we depend on all the other species and we need to therefore coexist with them. So nature sustains us, and without nature we don't exist. So that's really what the ecozoic is about. There is one other bit that I love as well, and that's whilst this talk is trying to help you think seal, we can never think seal properly because we can never be seal. Therefore we cannot really fully understand what it's like to be seal, something that's in the concept of the ecozoic. As with you during the pupping season, when you're doing your photo ID, every seal counts for us. Photo ID on their unique fur patterns, which obviously you do in the Isle of Man as well, is really informative. It speaks to individual habits, movements and characters. So on the left, we've got Fairy Girl. In the middle, we've got Shadow Puppet, and on the right we've got Tulip. Tulip is a very special female because she we know she adopted a seal pup that wasn't her own, and we know that, you know, the storm Brian, which you had in the Isle of Man, you lost loads of white coat pups during that single storm. Same happened on Skoma, and they'd never seen this female before on Skoma, and she just suddenly appeared. Maybe she'd lost a pup on Ramsey because she had milk, and she suddenly appeared and she adopted one of the marked pups that they had that they knew belonged to a different mum. So she's, you know, this is what photo ID allows you to do, is begin to understand the complexity of this species. If I know the names of the seals, I've put them down the right hand side. Just to give you an overview about what we do, basically we're pretty busy. So in 2021, I've just highlighted a few things here. We've got lots of volunteers, and we did 14 surveys a day, every day on average in 2021, which is really phenomenal. We managed to get over 13,000 IDs. There were 7 seals that I first met in the year 2000 still around in 2021, which is very special for me. We sadly had 134 different unique entangled seals, and we had a lot of disturbance. So 1,487 seriously disturbed seals across the southwest in 2021 in 282 different incidents. But the key thing that we do, as well as gather data, is talk to people about how amazing seals are, and we talk to 13,000 plus people. As you already know, I'm sure, we have 2 native UK seal species, the common seal and the grey seal. Common seal is also called a harbour seal. How do you tell the difference? I'm sure you already know this, but nevertheless, I'm going to go through it. Basically, we have a common seal on the left, and their heads are not as big. I always think that if their head looks too small for their body, they're a common seal, and if their head looks the right size, they're a grey seal. It's not very scientific, is it? But the other main way is the fur pattern for me. I can usually tell just by looking at the fur pattern if it's tiny dots like the seal on the left, or if it's got ringed patterns outlining a dot, then it's more likely to be a common or harbour seal. If it's got patches and blotches or lines and marks, it's more likely to be a grey seal. But the other key thing is the snub nose and the forehead here on a common seal, whereas a grey seal nose profile is either straight, flat or Roman nosed, unless it's a juvenile, and juvenile grey seals can often be mistaken for harbour seals. We do have some common seals in Cornwall, and this is a legendary seal called Ellis, who I think actually might sadly be no longer with us, but I'm not entirely sure about that yet. Basically, you can see we've got years across the top on this calendar and months down the side, and the numbers are the number of IDs we had of him, and the colours are different sites. So you can see he spends a little bit of time in the summer on the fowl. He spends a lot of time on the roseland, and when we first met him, he was actually in Loo. He's got a horrible wound on his back, and it's tempting to think it's a wound, but we actually believe, having photo ID'd him, it's not a wound at all. It's actually a tracking infection, and we think this is probably what's finished him off now, because the infection tracked under his flippers through gravity, we think. Anyway, he's a very fine adult male seal, and he may even be the father of the little tiny beauty in this photo, because we've had historic events in Cornwall in the last 2 years. We've been rescuing, and when I say we, I mean me as a volunteer for British Divers Marine Life Rescue. British Divers Marine Life Rescue have been rescuing common seals in Cornwall for many years. We've never had a successfully weaned one until last year. And this female, Serena, is a regular sighted harbour seal on our patch. And we think that she and Ellis get together every now and again, and the result is these little pups. So maybe he's fathered this pup. We will never know, but nevertheless, if it is, it's a nice legacy. Other than that, I think probably it's a hybrid. The pups are probably hybrids, but who knows? And then we have grey seals. So this is one of my favourite grey seals. I've only ever seen her once on my patch, but quite a few times in Lou. You can see from her calendar, you can predict she's going to be in Lou between April and September. I've seen her at the Green site, which is up on the north coast. So Lou is southeast Cornwall. The Green site is west north Cornwall. And the grey site is right up near the Devon border on the north coast. So she commutes right around the coast. And what really shocked us in this photo is South Devon. So she goes all the way from North Cornwall, probably near North Devon, all the way around the Cornish Peninsula, and she's been seen in South Devon. So they're great movers, which keeps us on our toes and keeps us interested. And talking of movers, I was sat in my bed one night cursing Lara Howe. And why was I cursing her? Because she'd sent me shed loads of photos of seals. And I was sitting in my bed with my laptop looking through these photos going, I don't know why I'm looking at these photos. I'm never going to find a match between the Isle of Man and Cornwall. And then I got to seal 79 and I went, oh my word, I no, it can't be. No, it can't be. And then I talk myself out of it. And then I look at my catalogue and then I discover, yes, actually, she's one of ours. So this is the photo from the Isle of Man. You can see these patterns here. This is the photo that I took at my West Cornwall site. This is her with her pup in the Isle of Man. And look, she's only had, to our knowledge so far, 4 pups in the Isle of Man. I've known her since 2001. I didn't see her at all between 2002 and 2006, and then all of a sudden she became a bit much of a regular at my site. She's been seen at a second site in Cornwall, but she commutes up to you, which is 450 kilometres away, to have her pup, and then she commutes back. The only thing that I can think I take from this is she was probably born in the Isle of Man and just visits us for feeding, but who knows? And I said a bit of a revelation for Lara, maybe, about whether she would be pupping with you in a particular year. And my guess, Lara, is that you won't have had her to pup this year. But this is just a guess. And the reason being, look, on the years, and this is the exception, but on the years when she pupped with you, I saw her at my site just before she came up to you. So I think she probably leaves my site and heads up to you. This is the exceptional year. There's a rule, there's an exception to every rule, isn't there? But look, this year, that particular year, 2016, I saw her. She had a pup with you that year. And normally I don't see her. So at that time, and I haven't seen her this year. So maybe she's not coming to you to pup. Who knows? But if she's not pupping with you, where's she pupping? More questions than answers always. So since I've been doing this, we have as a, and when I say I am representing this huge network of volunteers. So I'm talking about their data and giving their data a voice. But look, Seals in Cornwall have so far linked the Isle of Man, North Wales. We've had 2 links actually, Devon and Cornwall to the Isle of Man, Escort and Tulip Bell. North Wales, South East Island, South Wales, Devon, North obviously, Isles of Scilly, Brittany, and I'll talk about the Star in a minute, and then Devon and Dorset. We've also had 2 common seals from Holland and Belgium, and this is like 650 kilometres away. So this was our greatest mover, Mickey, sadly bycaught by one of our local fishing vessels in the end, which was devastating. But he was live and on Par Beach before he was bycaught. But the Star was the shock of the year for us. This little seal, which has got 75, I think probably hydrogen peroxide bleached on its fur pattern, so it's fine, it's non-invasive, and it will molt and get rid of the 75. I think this little seal is a star. Why? Because she was released by Bay Ritz Aquarium. Bay Ritz is here by the Spanish border in France, and she turned up less than 28 days later in Mousehole in Cornwall. So she did 800 kilometres in less than 28 days. Bless her. What was she doing? Who knows? But it means that seals are very well travelled and, you know, far more interesting than perhaps we give them credit for. Okay, so just a little bit about their importance in terms of conservation. They're described as globally rare. There are more people in Cornwall than there are grey seals in the world, which I always find shocking. We've got over 1/3 of the world's population in the UK, When I started doing this, we had 50%. So maybe they're thriving better elsewhere than they are here. Who knows? And the thing that always surprises me, because we're reintroducing red squirrels, is that there are more red squirrels in the UK than there are grey seals, even though we've got a third of the world's population. So I find that a bit shocking. Okay, I've given Graham a playlist, but I don't want him to shove it in the chat and share it yet. But at some point he will share it with you, because I'm going to play you some videos and they're going to play jerkily. If you would like to watch the videos without the jerks, then that's the playlist. It's it's a non-public playlist. And the other thing is, I'm going to ask you at the end if you would mind doing as a survey monkey, because it helps us get funding. Okay, so this is the wild Atlantic Ocean. This is what it's like in West Cornwall on a bad day. You can see how tiny the seals are, and therefore how big the waves are. And I'm just going to play it again. Now you've got time to get the scale of it. But basically, there's a wave coming in from the right, it's mahusive. There's a wave coming in from the top, also mahusive, and the seals have to navigate this environment. It's a wild Atlantic Ocean. They have no control over their environment. If they don't like their environment, all they can do is move. And of course, what's happening in the North Atlantic is it's getting less predictable because of climate change. But there are two drivers that drive most of their activities and their food and genes. So I'm going to go through those in turn. The other thing I just want to point out is that seals, obviously, as you know, are marine and terrestrial in terms of their habit. That makes them much more like seabirds than cetaceans, because they come on land to rest, to digest, to socialise, to pup, and even potentially to replenish emergency oxygen supplies. There is some research out there that suggests that they store emergency oxygen in their spleen. I don't know which side my spleen is, but effectively what happens when they need emergency oxygen because the dive was deeper than they expected, their spleen can go and contract and shove out a load of emergency oxygenated blood, which can prevent them from dying. It's really exciting and really interesting. Okay, this is a jerky video anyway, but it's going to be even jerkier for you. This is an adult male grey seal climbing out of the water. And for people who've never seen seals, and I know you have, but for people who've never seen seals, they're always shocked at their ability to climb. They're very powerful shoulders, really strong claws. They have bones supporting their claws underneath, and they're capable of really incredible feats. So their anatomy is really quite amazing. And this is little tiny juvenile female seal who's just decided rather than go round the ramp, she's going to climb up the ramp. And you'd think it wouldn't be possible, but there she is. She's managed to get herself up. But the key thing about this is it takes a lot of energy. So there must be a good reason why they use all this energy to come out on land. And recent research suggests that unlike cetaceans, who can only ever shut half of their brain down, when seals are out of the water resting, they can shut more of their brain down and therefore use less energy, and therefore they're digesting their food anyway. It really helps with their get rest. So REM sleep, which cetaceans don't. And have train that some mothers also have to rest maybe on, but she's, which is way up the back of this beach, and the tide's gone out. So she now has a set route that she will take over the substrate in order to access up just so she can fit it over low tide. She's now got a bit of so she's choosing carefully which way to go, but you can see this is risky terrain, and if she gets something wrong, she could easily have a bottom jaw. Again, massive amounts of energy used. So to remember, when they come out of the water, they're doing it for a good reason. We need to leave them there to avoid any energy being wasted. I've speeded this up in a minute. This is 3 scars, and he is choosing to acclimatise himself. Long, I can't possibly play it in a talk, so I speeded it up. He basically takes his time. He uses his 4 flippers and the counter-current heat exchange system in his 4 flippers to acclimatise the temperature of his bloodstream, so that when he goes in the water, he doesn't get cold shock. And I don't know if you noticed, but the last bits of his body that went in the water, which is why seals do their banana, was his face where he's got no blubber, his rear flippers where he's got no blubber, and that really sensitive bit between his rear flippers. Now, you know, when you go into cold water, you have a sensitive bit there, and it's the moment when you enter the sea. It's the same for seals. So ideally, they will let themselves go into the water slowly and gently and acclimatise. When we disturb them, what happens? They rush into the sea and their body gets cold shock, which is not great for them. Okay, so we know that seals sleep in the sea. This is a bottling seal that apparently resembles a floating bottle from a distance. It's having a yawn, but check out its whiskers. Seal whiskers are ridiculously mobile. They are more sensitive than the palms of our hands. Every whisker has 1,500 nerve endings. We have 2,500 on our entire palm. And what has just been released in science is that this is the most whiskered mammal. They've even got more whiskers, and they're more sensitive whiskers. Actually, they might not have more whiskers. I'll take that back. They've got more sensitive whiskers than rodents, and rodent whiskers are really very sensitive. So yeah, sleeping in the sea is key, but their main rest can be happened on land. Okay, 2 drivers, food. This was a world first video, and it's adult females foraging deep underwater near a wreck in the Scillies. And they can't see well, maybe they can see the light of the camera for sure, but normally at this depth they wouldn't be able to use their eyes for foraging. What they're using is their whiskers, and what she has just done had not ever been seen in science before. It's going to play again as a slow-mo, but basically she's using her whiskers to detect fish. She grabs it by the rear of the fish, and then without any muscle movements as such, she just sucks it in. Now, science described common seals as doing that, snatch and suck, but they'd never seen grey seals do it before. So it's really exciting. This was captured by Dave McBride, a diver on the Scillies. So yeah, this is what most of their food is like. Tiny stuff, swallowed, down in one. Anything up to the size of a mackerel, down in one, out of sight. Whereas if they bring and catch a big fish, like a flatfish off the seabed, they have to bring it to the surface to eat something big. And then they put it in their teeth, they shake their heads until these bits drop off and they can eat these bits, because they don't have grinding teeth. They don't have molars. So they just have to shake until it breaks and hope these cut off, these teeth here cut it off. And then they dive for the other bits, and then they repeat until they can eat all the bits that they want. So that was a really interesting video, as was this one. Now, at some point in this video, there's a little flash of silver, which is why you might want to watch the playlist. But this is an adult seal, and a family caught this also on the Isles of Scilly on their holidays. And what this seal is doing is zigzagging up the gully and corralling sand eels up to the end of the gully, and then it can have a feeding frenzy at the end of the gully. So now it's got its fish where it wants it. It's going to snatch and it's going to dive and catch and have a really nice feed. So this kind of active foraging was a very clever thing for the seal to do, and it didn't just do it once, it did it twice up this gully and was videoed by this family. So active foraging in a really clever way. Okay, the other driver, so I think you know what's coming, don't you, is genes. Okay, this is an adult female called Crosscomb, one of my favorites. I have lots of favorites, FYI. All females can pup for life. That means they can have a pup every single year, provided they're healthy and fit enough, and there is no menopause, so they can pup till they drop. Makes me feel quite sorry for them, really. They do delayed implantation, which I'm sure you know. So if they wean their pup and they mate and they get fertilized for their egg, if they don't then feed over the next 3 months and get fat and fit, that fertilized egg won't implant and the pregnancy will be lost. So they have to be fat and fit in order to be able to do that, but they can do it every year. In contrast, this is an adult male, plain, dark. The female was light and spotty, especially on the belly. Most males are non-breeding. They never get to beach master, they never get to protect females, and they never get to mate with the females and pass on their genes. But, you know, what do? Well, they sleep, they catch fish, they eat, they digest while they're sleeping, they move to catch fish, they eat, and so on. You get it, don't you? It's quite a nice life. I don't think it's that simple personally. I think they also have a role to show juvenile seals how to be a seal, but that's another story. Beach masters then, these are the dominant males. We sometimes call them patch masters as well now, because if they are on a big beach with thousands of seal pups, they can only manage a small number of females, so they have a patch of beach. So beach masters, patch masters are not always the biggest seals. This is Feathers, who is the beach master. You can see he's not that big. This seal is much, much bigger, and so is the one on the left. So there must be something about a beach master that enables them to hold a territory over stronger seals. And my guess is that they have to be intelligent. They have to be highly adaptable to whatever circumstances throw at them. Gosh, they have to be patient, because they have to look after females for up to 3 months when they're fasting. And they have to be patient and look after their females, because if they don't look after their females and the females don't like them, the female won't let them mate with them when they come into season. The females will swim off and have a mating with a sneaky male that they prefer. So they have to be empathetic to their females and respectful. And they have to be strong. So this is a different beach master. He is on the seaward side. He's called Whiteback Sea. And you can see this wannabe Peapod, who's very young, probably only 10, is trying to challenge him. And what's going on here is super clever. It looks like a wild fight, but in actual fact, Whiteback Sea, the seal on the left, is super clever, and he's now got Peapod in retreat, as you can see. I'm just going to play it again, because he's on the weak position. He's on the seaward side. Peapod's in the dominant position. But Whiteback Sea knows there is a big wave coming, and he uses the big wave to get the control territory up the beach. Look, pushes him up the beach, and now Peapod's in trouble. And Peapod can't turn round and swim off, because Whiteback Sea will probably rip his rear flippers, and then he won't be able to dive and catch fish. So he has to back and face, back and face, and back and face until he knows he can get away from the beach master. And this is what the beach masters fight over, obviously the opportunity to mate with females. You will know that this can sometimes last for up to 20 minutes to give the male sperm time to get up to where it needs to do its business, fertilizing eggs. But honestly, if you see this behaviour, there's an awful lot of foreplay goes on, but once they are co-joined, it is apparently pleasurable bliss. They just lie co-joined together, and they do it on land. They also do it in the sea, and I think I've put something in to show that. So this was new science though. So this is Tamfire mating with kelp on the land. What was really interesting, I didn't want to watch, so I went off and I came back, and when I came back they were mating in the sea. So they have mated twice on the same day, same male, same female, and you can see they've actually been washed inshore between a rock and a rock and a soft place by the looks of it, up against the seaweed, and they're co-joined. He looks like he's absolutely loving it, either that or he's concentrating a lot, and she's like tolerating it. And I thought there was a lot of empathy and communication potentially going on between them during this. But when I saw this year, so this is a brand new video, nobody else has seen this yet. If you're mating in the sea, can you imagine how much cooperation and empathy there needs to be between these two seals? Because if they dive, which they're about to do because they're being washed inshore, they move and swim somewhere else, and so they're a bit further offshore. They've got to do that so they can both breathe. He's got to be in tune with her. He can't drown her while he's mating with her. That's not going to work. So they have to communicate with each other, be patient and coordinate what they're doing, and be tolerant of each other for that mating to be successful, because they got to do that for over 20 minutes, which is really quite fascinating. I find it fascinating anyway. I'm just going to move that because yeah, the female's called Squirrel Tail, but I don't know what the male's called. Okay, and then they have their pups. You can see the pup at the top of the screen. This is a female called Whitefish, and what I'd like you to do is watch her head. You might be able to tell that she's using her nostrils, opening and closing them to scent. She's looking right and sniffing. She's going to sneeze in a minute. Not quite sure when that is. There we go. She's just sneezed, and that chucked out a load of snot, which means she can now breathe. She's got all the moisture out of her nose, so she can breathe more easily to smell where her pup is, because when she left her pup, it was high tide, and now it's low tide, and her pup shifted, which is really not helpful to her. She looked left, she looked forward, she looked right, she sniffed, and then she discovered the strongest scent was coming from her pup. So we get from this kind of incident that seal smell is a really important sense. Seals can probably smell you before they can hear you, before they can see you. And I've discovered fairly recently that they have incredible noses to be able to make that possible. I put this in, nobody else has seen this either. This is just for you. This is a beachmaster. Check out his nostrils. He is trying to scent the pheromones of a female in season, and he's not getting any feedback from his nostrils about where she is. And I can tell him she's gone. So he's going to be pretty annoyed that he's actually missed mating with this female in season. But seals, when they're breathing, breath hold, and they take a few breaths and then they breath hold. He's not doing that at all. He's really trying to scent that female. So poor snake, he missed her. No idea what happened. And then this is a mum, Ringpool, feeding her seal pup. They only feed for 3 short weeks, probably sometimes as little as 15 days, so just 2 weeks. And the pup has to go from 10 to 13 kilos to 40 kilos. If it doesn't make it to 40 kilos, it is not going to survive the winter. It's never going to survive. The rescue protocol weight as well. So what they do is they go out to sea. They have to teach themselves to feed because the mums only ever give them milk. Is if they drop below 20 kilos, they are doomed for sure, and they have to be rescued, or they can, you know, if we're lucky enough, they're rescued. The 3 short weeks. Why only 3 weeks maximum? Because the mum loses a third of her body weight, and if she doesn't leave the pup, she will die. She has to go and feed because she's fasted while she's been feeding her pup. Okay, I want to tell you a love story. So Whiteback Sea, who was that male who was competing with Peapod, this is him. And this is officially my favourite seal, Ghost. Okay. Why is she special? Well, because I have known her since 2003 when she had her first pup. We only ever see her during the pupping season, and the pups have always been at the yellow site, bar the first and bar the last. I'll come on to that. Whiteback Sea was beachmaster at the yellow site between 2011 and 2015. And he was a ridiculously old male, far too old to beachmaster. But what he would do is he would arrive before Ghost. He would wait for her to arrive. He would look after just Ghost. He wouldn't look after the other females. He would look after Ghost. He would get constant hassle from her, moaning because, you know, he wasn't doing a good enough job. And she would tell him to get lost all the time. And then they would have their pups. He fathered her pups between these years, and then you can see he disappeared, and I thought he was dead, but no, he's reappeared at other sites, including the south coast. And then all of a sudden, he's been back to the yellow site here, but she wasn't there then. All of a sudden, he came back in her usual time in 2021, perhaps for a last hurrah. And what happened? She wasn't there. Something happened to her in 2021 and she got caught short. And instead of having her pup at the yellow site, she had a pup on the south coast about 40 kilometers away. So he was there looking for her for a last hurrah. And where was she? Down on the south coast having a blooming pup. Right, the other thing the ecozoic tells us is this idea that we're never going to be able to fully understand their competencies. And what's happening in this video is Ghost, with her pup, suddenly getting mothering instincts for this other pup that she knows is in severe trouble. So what she's doing with these massive waves is she is focusing on her pup and protecting her pup, but she's also just scared that other pup up the beach out of the way of the waves. She knows that that pup will be washed into the sea, and if it's washed into the sea, it'll be doomed and its mum won't be able to find her. This is an utterly incredible bit of behaviour So she's scaring up the beach, but she's always keeping an eye on her pup. And then as she escorts her pup up the beach, she puts her flipper around it and makes sure it's safe. It's a wonderful bit of video, and it shows just how clever and caring these mums are. The guy who took this video said that the white coat pup that she saved was seen behind the boulder up the beach, so it was great. This is hot off the press news. So Ghost, I told you about her in 2021. We always wonder, will she be back? She's a world record breaker, because this year she's had 19 pups. This is her pup, and this is her down the bottom here. She's had 19 pups in 20 years on exactly the same beach, bar the first, bar the last, except for this year. And she made me wait. I haven't even seen her pup this year, which has frustrated me hugely. But one of our volunteers got a photo, and you can see the pup is stupidly healthy. And the great news is I've managed to ID the fur pattern, so we can track her pup through to adulthood. It's cute, isn't it? Fat little chonk. Gorgeous pup. But this is the fattest chonk pup I've ever seen. This is as fat as its mother. So in those 3 weeks, we know that seals also lose their long white fur, and they have their grey pattern, which they will keep for life. Although the contrast will change in the pattern stays the same. Okay, but it's all changing in our Atlantic. I'm not going to go through all of these impacts, but these are all things that seals are having to tolerate. And some of these anthropogenic stuff, you know, hooked seals, bicaught seals, and this is no place to bring up your seal pup, but it's the pollution we've got on our beaches. So we've been getting some phenology shifts with our data. Our peak pupping season, our peak haul out season used to be April, and now it's December. That's a massive, humongous shift in terms of peak numbers. And pupping season has moved from October, followed by November, through to September, followed by August. So we're now moving into the peak tourist season, which is a big issue. So our pupping season is not only earlier but shorter. And we've also been getting haul out extensions, haul out moves, and recolonisations of some of the sites that had probably been lost as a result of water quality. We all know that climate change is a thing, and in Cornwall that's increasing coastal erosion rates. These are 2 seal pupping caves. I saw one of my favourite seals boomers outside these caves just before this happened a week later. So this was in the pupping season in September. A week later, this is what the cliff looked like. So the whole cliff had collapsed, and those pupping caves were now blocked with all the females that were in it and all the pups, and I never saw that seal boomers afterwards. Only takes a small rockfall though to kill seals on a haul out beach, so that's something that's more common. We had a massive rockfall on one of the 3 biggest haul out beaches in North Cornwall this year. This is the average number of seals hauled out on that beach, and after a rockfall in March, this is what happened on that beach. So we had virtually no seals using that beach because of a massive rockfall. So this is now climate change disturbing seals. The other thing that I've discovered very recently as well, this was on in September, look, I got caught in this hammering rainstorm and I sheltered under the wall, and when I came back there were 2 disturbance incidents, and 37 of the 70 seals were disturbed into the water by the hammering rain. So I missed the first one, but I saw the second one. That's how I know how many seals, because I stood in the hammering rain the second time to see what the seals would do. Marine debris, we all know this is a massive issue, so ROU didn't want to lie among it. It's a very steep learning curve for juveniles. They learn through curiosity and play, and they'll play with anything. This is a very benign thing to play with, but a lost bit of trawl net isn't. And we think that these seal pups teach themselves to feed, maybe by show and tell, maybe from some of those older males who they're watching catch fish, maybe just trial and error, and maybe by a process of elimination. Oh, yuck, that tastes horrible. I'm not having that again. One of the things that we also try to talk to people about is not feeding seals, because it encourages seals to live in harbours, and boats are always a risk with propellers, and diesel, if it's inhaled by a seal, would lead to organ failure. I'm just going to play that again, because as Radley swims away from the camera, which she's exploring with her whiskers, you will see on her right thigh she's got 3 black marks, and we think that's where she had a close encounter with a propeller, but we know for sure that seals have been hit by propellers in beaches. Entanglement, also a risk. So this is a seal called Lucky Star because we managed to rescue him, but this was the first time I saw him. He probably got entangled because the net was the most interesting thing he'd seen all day, and they play with it. And there's an example on the right hand side, not him but another seal. Their panic response is to spin. Their panic response is to spin, and when they spin they just cocoon themselves up, which is just appalling. But this seal was disturbed back into the water by people on the cliff top, and it took us 4 months with British Divers Marine Life Rescue to rescue him, and by that time he had a hideous wound. Flying rings are also an issue, which is why we've been campaigning. I'm delighted to say that Pets at Home and Tesco's, thanks to all the different Seal Alliance groups writing around the UK, have now taken them off their shelves. We're not saying don't play frisbee, we're saying play frisbee near a watercourse with a solid disc. Don't use a ring because it's a threat to marine life. You know, rivers take it to the sea, blah, blah, blah. And disturbance of pregnant females in the summer is a really big issue, but it's invisible. So Radley's sticking her tongue out at this kayak that's far too close, but she's very tolerant because she lives in a harbour in the summer. But unfortunately, if she doesn't put on enough weight through saving all her energy and eating really well, she won't be able to feed her pup enough in the autumn, and her pup will die in the winter. So disturbance of pregnant females in the summer is absolutely critical. And this is a really shocking photo of land and sea disturbance, actually most sea disturbance, sorry. This male is protecting the female, but ultimately he gives up, and you can see she's massively pregnant. When she rushes into the sea, she'll be bouncing on her pup, which is never going to be good for her unborn pup. So what do seals do when they're disturbed? Well, they will either tombstone, which is, you know, like humans do, tombstoning off a harbour or something. A classic thing that can happen when they do this is they can break their bottom jaw, or they can break their ribs, because they have 3 extra pair of ribs compared to us. Apparently we lost ours so we could touch our toes. Seals have got extra ribs at the front, and they can snap them very easily. We've got some examples of how ribs never heal either, because they have to collapse under pressure when the seal's diving. This young juvenile has no extra blubber layers. That fall is going to be life-threatening because it is going to break a bone, and it'll swim off and be appear fine. So all we're saying is that the impacts of disturbance are invisible and often delayed. Oh, I need to turn the sound down. This is a video I had recently. If you can imagine doing this in a wetsuit, which would protect you quite a lot, it probably got as much protection as this pup's got blubber, as this juvenile's got blubber. So it's not going to be a pleasant experience doing that. Probably didn't injure itself, but it could injure itself. And so we ask people to risk assess, just like we do for humans. We've got a potential outcome, a likelihood, probability, and a risk rating. So these seals down here are probably at relatively low risk, although they could have an injury minor by cutting a flipper as they go over the rocks. It's possible, so it's a medium risk, 3 times 3. Whereas this seal up here, which is above the high tide mark, is likely to kill itself in the, you know, delayed effects. And likewise this one, if it gets disturbed off those ledges into the sea. The other reaction is to stampede. And the seal, this juvenile seal, has already got blood on its side, which may have been as a result of the stampede, but may not. The frisbee seal is here, which is pretty hideous. Now I know what to look for. I zoom in after the seals have stampeded over these rocks, and I look for blood trails. Obviously you can rip out a claw, but the blood trails are always obvious. And there were 19 blood trails on this particular day. So 19 seals had injured themselves as they'd stampeded into the sea. So it's a high risk activity for sure. And what we don't want seals to be doing is stampeding over ridiculously rough terrain like this, because they will rip out claws and they will injure themselves. So this is one of the graphics, Laura, that's in that Google Drive of things. Basically, interrupted rest is the least impact, but, you know, cold shock, energy loss, can't digest their food when they should be. Panic, when you get your stress hormone release and your flight response. Racing heart, racing breathing, you're wasting energy now, and you could risk injury and injuries. Even racing over 100 meters of shingle gives seals road rash on their flippers, and they get grazes which probably sting when they go in the salt water, or they can rip out a claw, or they can gash their bellies. So the impacts aren't always visible. Sometimes they are, but they're not always visible, and they are often delayed. It's always a waste of energy, and in the wild, every calorie counts and can make the difference between life and death. I always worry about the calories I eat. Seals, you know, need every calorie they've got. But the good news is we can all do something about this and put this problem to bed tomorrow if we want to. So we've got reports, they're all in that Google Drive. We've got clear definitions about disturbance now. What's a level 1, looking around, level 2, moving towards, level 3, leaving the land, going into the sea, and a few other bits and pieces, or if we're not sure. And we use those routinely to record disturbance. I'm going to whiz through these because I don't want to take up much more time, but basically it's an issue all around Cornwall, and we have more disturbance in the summer, and we have more seals disturbed in the winter. So it eases itself out. When we've got more people around, we have more disturbance, and when we've got more seals around, we have more seals seriously disturbed. But the only statistically significant increase was in the summer. So we now know when to target our activity. Then we did some even more detailed surveys in 2019 and 2021, where we looked at seals and we looked at people. You can look at the report in your own time. This is what one of our sensitive seals, 2 hours at one of our sensitive seal sites, what it looks like in the summer. And the research that we did showed that there wasn't a statistically significant increase in disturbance between 2019 and 2021, but there was a very high disturbance rate, 44% of all the time we looked. But it was 68% of the time when we were present, and we were present 65% of the time. So most of the disturbance is as a result of us. What I loved about the research that finally came out is that trip boats, ribs and airbase causes caused the highest proportions of disturbance, but paddle sports and swimmers cause the most serious level of disturbance. So what the research did was it said, this isn't just one user group causing a problem, this is all of us. And what I now ask people to do is, will you stop pointing the finger at somebody else, and will you start pointing the finger at yourself and say, am I doing the right thing by these seals? Am I being a good neighbour to these seals? Am I respecting and behaving responsibly around them? And if the answer is yes, problem goes away tomorrow, which is a really positive message. Basically, at the 4 sites we looked at, disturbance remained the same at 2. It got twice as good. It got much better at one site, but it was much worse at another site. And this is where paddle sports had a major impact, because it was the most accessible site. And we had some recommendations. I'm pleased to be able to say that DEFRA are writing a voluntary marine code of conduct. They're not looking at licensing yet, but they are looking to make seal disturbance illegal. It's still going through Parliament. Goodness only knows when we'll get any sense out of that. So in 2022, we changed our tune a bit, and instead of looking at seal disturbance, we started really recording activity. These are all best practice things, and all I do is for these 5 different boats, for example, I just tally when they don't follow best practice. And now what we can do with this kind of recording is we can feed back to an operator and say, on this particular day, these were the good practice things you did. These were the good practice things that you need to get better at, and this is what we didn't record. And we can just feed that back to the operators. It's made a hell of a difference. The other thing that we've done is we've targeted different user groups on our social media, and what we'd love, Lara, going forward is us to try and coordinate that better with we will come up with a better strategy and tell you when we're doing our posts so that you can potentially share them. We've now got some paddle sports stickers. If you decided you like these, the guy who designed them is very happy to put your logo on them. So for example, Gower Seal Group have taken the paddle sports sticker and the car sticker, and so have South Devon. So you can have those made more bespoke for you, and I have some money to print some at the minute if you want them. There's also this graphic which is in that Google Drive, which is a really nice succinct graphic, and there are also separate social media ones for the happy, worried and disturbed seal. We've been working on a project with a couple of universities, and they came up with a really lovely idea about thinking about seals as neighbours. We've got this brand new poster which we'll launch next year. Do you have nuisance neighbours? And it shows a seal being a pain in the backside. and really it's us being the pain in the backside. So it's a bit of a joke. It's aimed at communicating with an audience we haven't successfully communicated with before, and we're hoping that the cartoon will get over. We've got 6 different graphics for social media, and the other thing they helped us come up with is a manifesto for seals. Not what I want for seals, but what seals need, and that's a really useful document too. We work with the Seal Alliance, who I've mentioned a couple of times, all these different seal groups around the UK. Lara, actually, I don't know why we've never invited you to join. It would be a bit of a no-brainer. We did loads of petitioning in 2021. This was the Environment Minister at the time. This was the, we met them and we engaged them. We had a 10-minute rule bill. And that's why we're hoping seal disturbance, which has been recommended by the JNCC, seals to be added to the Wildlife and Countryside Act, which would make disturbance illegal. So that's why we're hoping it will become illegal. But we have these leaflets, and inside of the leaflet is a sign. So I can even provide you with free signs. I know they're DEFRA logoed, so that might be a bit of an issue for you guys. But if you want leaflets and signs and stuff, we can provide them. They've gone up at loads of sensitive seal sites from north of John O'Groats to France. They were even translated into France, and they flew because they were free. I got funding for them, and secondly, they were government backed. So we also have, I'm nearly finished, we also have a policy about using photos of seals online. I like to show natural behaviour, and natural behaviour only occurs when the seal doesn't know I'm there. So if I've got a photo of a seal looking at the camera, the chances are the seal knew the camera was there and it's been disturbed. So I try to share photos on our social media of seals not looking at the camera. We're trying to change the culture of seal photography one photo at a time. We also don't post photos of large numbers of seals because somebody always asks where's that, and somebody else always answers it. And we have generic names for sites. So my site is called West Cornwall. Well, unless you ask me, I'll tell you exactly where it is if you ask me, but I'm not going to put that out on social media, and I'm not going to share it widely. So this is a great photo of a seal. The seal is so relaxed, you can even see its second eyelid. That's how relaxed it is. And that's why my photos are never really sharp. So to finish, seal society is stupidly complicated, and we're only beginning to touch the surface of it. There is no such thing as an average seal, like there is no such thing as an average human. You probably all arrived from different venues to join up for the talk, and you're all going to go home to different places. It's the same with a seal on a seal haul out. They arrive individually, they leave individually, they just haul out for the comfort and security of the safety in numbers, and for a bit of sociability and interaction, and maybe building up pecking orders and blah blah blah. Who knew seals were so well travelled, and they need joined up protected habitat for different seasons, and whether we like it or not, we're impacting their health, welfare and mortality already. Those have been my key learning points. Having volunteers, so many volunteers, is massively inspiring for me, because we now cover all the way from the Solent to Somerset, which is right the way around the southwest. We even have photo ID volunteers in South Wales, but now we do digital volunteering. We have volunteers in Germany and America, which is really quite amazing. And what do? Well, they're eyes and ears on their patch. They survey, they'll help us process photos. So if you can't get out and about, but you're good on a computer, you can still help make and confirm IDs. Some of our volunteers digitise data, some of them analyse it, some of them write reports for us, some of them fundraise, and all of them are ambassadors and champions for seals. Without them, we're nothing, but we do have to look after them. And I've started to try and reduce my stress levels by not going for massive funding bids. So we're trying to support our marine rangers who support our volunteers through donations, our online shop, and an adoption scheme that we run. I know you have your own, so that's fine. YouTube channel, got loads of interesting stuff on it, so do have a look. Check us out on all our social media channels. We're on all of the main ones apart from TikTok. We've got our online shop with some lovely Sealy merchandise and other stuffs. Our philosophy for our shop has been locally sourced, artisan, as little plastic as potentially possible. Like these pictures are made up out of tents taken off a beach, so some of it's really good stuff, unique stuff. The only thing we can't source within the UK, and we source them from a UK company but they're not made in the UK, are these furry seals, which are a bit of a no-brainer for us to have. So please give me some feedback using the link, and that's it, me done and dusted. I hope that was interesting for you. Sorry, it was a bit longer than usual. I apologise. I put some extra stuff in for you guys, so sorry about that.
Thank you, Sue. That was amazing. I've learned so much tonight as well. So I've been really inspired by tonight. So I hope everyone online and in person in the room has enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you. That was really, really interesting. So I'm going to throw it open to questions in the room first, if anyone's got any. Jax, go on.
Hi, Sue. Thanks for the talk. It was wonderful.
Hello, Jax. Oh my God. Hello,
Hello, lovely. I particularly really like the new posters coming out. I really like that you're trying to reach different audiences. I have two questions. One is, what is one thing that you still don't know about seals that you'd like to know? And the second is, if money were no object, what would you like to see the Research Trust do next?
Good questions.
Oh my word. Gosh, now I know why you're good at your jobs. So I would like to know, is fur pattern genetically controlled? And we'd have to do DNA analysis of that. And I would never want to invasively DNA sample seals, so I would never know that. The other thing, so there's two. The other thing I would really like to know is where seals from the southwest go to forage, where their key foraging grounds are, because I have a fear that maybe some of their key foraging grounds is where the offshore wind farms will be between us, Ireland and Wales. But I don't know that because we've never done the research, and part of that's my fault because I've never let anyone satellite tag seals on our patch. The reason being that not that I could go into why I don't like satellite tags, particularly unless they're going to show new science, and this would be new science, so it would be worth doing. Is that the Welsh, the Irish, the Isle of Man and the French have all satellite tag seals. So well, maybe actually the Isle of Man haven't, I don't know. No, okay.
I want to.
Okay, so Wales, France and Ireland have all satellite tagged, and they all come through Cornwall because it's a bit of a hub. So we need to do a better understanding and a collation of all the existing data before we decide whether we need to do any satellite tagging ourselves. So note to self, I need to ask Maru to come out with our foraging sites for seals that have visited Cornwall. Why can't I ask them? I can just ask them, can't I? I'll write that down. Right, and the other question was, money no object, what would you do for the Seal Research Trust? Well, you'll notice that we've morphed a little bit from Cornwall Seal Grit Research Trust, where we started, into something where we call ourselves the Seal Research Trust, because our work has gone beyond Cornwall, and you know, the Seal Alliance work is national work, and it's much more inclusive for people. Even in the Isles of Scilly don't like being called Cornwall, so you know, Jax knows that. So Seal Research Trust is much more inclusive. I would actually like to be able to say we've got a funded future for us. So I'm a full-time volunteer. I'm going to keel over one day. I've actually had a heart attack this year. Don't know whether you knew that, Jax. But I got away with it, and I'm completely fine, and my heart's healthy, so I'm fine. But I'm not going to live forever, and I need this to continue. So I'm coming up with the succession plan for the charity, and I've got most things covered. But it needs younger people, and I'm retired picking up my pension. So I need money to fund that long term and have that long term security. You know, we can fund 2.5 rangers fairly comfortably. Actually, we've got 1.5 at the minute. We can fund it. Well, we can't fund it from our online shop and our supporters and adoptions yet, but we will be able to. But I need a leader. And I need somebody who can do all the statutory work, and I need somebody who can do all the media work, and I need somebody who can lead it going forward, because you all know teams need leaders, don't they? They need to be driven. They need to be somebody who's passionate, who can take it forward. And I found some people who might be able to do that, but only if they're paid. And then I've got to go for grants, and then it's short-term funding, and then it's, you know, it's not reliable, and blah, 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 blah. So future, certain future resilience for our work. Thanks, Jax, for being so challenging. Challenging questions. It's a good one, though. It's good. I like it. I've always liked hard questions because they teach me something myself.
Any other questions in the room?
People on Zoom, feel free to unmute and stick your cameras on and ask questions. Or if you're shy, stick them in the chat box and Sue will pick them up.
Go for it, Lee.
Oh yeah, hello. I've got one question. Tulip Bell is one seal. How many more do you think we might be getting in the Isle of Man?
I don't know, because we haven't. I think Lara actually sent me some more photos since she's, yes, look, she's nodding, and I haven't looked at them, Lara, which is a dreadful admission on my part, but we need to do that. What I need to do in order to be able to look at the Isle of Man photos is I need them shoved in a PowerPoint, which is easy to do. I can get a volunteer to do that. And now we've got something called Facebook Workplace, which is, it's like you've probably got an intranet. I've got a 32 terabyte NAS drive up here, but we haven't really got a network as such like that. So we've got Facebook Workplace, and all our photo ID coordinators share that, and they can cross-match IDs. So once I've got a PowerPoint, with your permission, of course, Lara, I could shove the PowerPoint on that closed intranet and give access to all our volunteers so that they can all have a look. So they'll all be super excited and trying to be the first person to ID the next seal. But I mean, you know, we had that underwater photo from a diver from you guys, and that one is a hookup to North Devon, which is super exciting. I don't know, Lee.
So could we speed this up by putting them in a PowerPoint for you?
Could. Yes, you could, Lee. That would be awesome if Lara's up for using your volunteer time to do that. Yes, and there's a very easy way of doing it, because you can just do insert photo album in a PowerPoint, and it'll put all of the photos on a separate page. But what I guess would be, to keep it simple, is Lara's usually got lots of photos of the different seals. Lots of photos of one seal. If you just picked the best left and the best right profile and shoved those in a PowerPoint, it would be quicker for you, and it would be easier for ID. But yeah, I mean, I think probably lots of seals don't link us up, Lee. I think it's probably a bit too far, but just the fact that we've got two shows, you know, there's two, it's not just one erroneous seal. There's, you know, so there's more. Yeah, I'd love to be able to find them. So I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, Lara. I feel really bad about it. But yeah, yes, if you're up for that, Lee. No people are up for it. Sounds perfect. Thank you. I think the problem that I've had over the last 2 years, really, well, actually, do you know what, since COVID, is COVID taught me Zoom. I'd never learned Zoom before COVID, and suddenly I was able to reach a wider audience. I now do Zoom talks for schools. I've done my first year 2 talk. I can do Zoom talks nationally and internationally now. I've done talks for seals, listen to me, I'm obsessive. I do talks for people in Austria that get, you know, and I presented at my first conference in Asia just recently, which is awesome. But this is all thanks to Zoom, and it just means that my time has gone from being really quite Cornwall based and very photo ID based into the much more potentially important work for me, into the conservation and the statutory agency policy and planning stuff. And yeah, it means we've had to engage more volunteers with the photo ID stuff, which is great, but it's just, I'm still in that adjustment phase really of trying to cope with a bigger, different workload and still juggle. That's my excuse, Laura. It's a pathetic one, but that's my excuse.
No, it's brilliant, because we would never have had the time to have done the comparison work. So without you and your wonderful support, we would never have found Tulip Bell to begin with, found that connection.
No,
so
how cool is it? It's just so, and she's such a beautiful seal, and I've known her for so long. It's amazing, really wonderful. I did forget to put something in this talk, because I always update my talks. They're always a bit different for every audience, and that was, I've partnered with the Field Studies Council in 2022, which I'm sure you've heard of, in 2022. And I've written my first official course, and the stuff that's in the course is different to everything I deliver generally. There's new stuff in there that's great. So you can do free volunteer training with us on demand online, that's fine, but the FSE course is charged. It's 60 quid, but if you can get a group booking, and a group booking is, I think it's more than 10 people, you can get group discounts. And one of the groups managed to get, I think you only need to get over, I'd have to look it up, over 20 people to sign up, and you get a 50% discount, which is really phenomenal discount on the course. It's a 4-week course. It's quite a substantial course, but it's all my knowledge in depth of what's useful to know about seals. And I'm just writing it's called a beginner course. It's really not a beginner course, in my opinion. It's like an intermediate course. I've had loads of people on it I've had 100 people on it this year, and loads of them are from Norfolk, who know shed loads, who've been volunteer wardening for years on Norfolk. And I didn't think I could teach them anything about seals, and even they fed back that they learned something new, which is really cool, really. But I've written the next level course, which is field skills to inform conservation. No, I'm writing. I'm about to start writing. I better get this tense right. I'm about to start writing the next level up, field skills to inform conservation. So the first course, which is called Discovering UK Seals, runs in May and August next year. It's not on their website yet. And the field skills one will probably run. Did I say May and August? I didn't mean that. I meant the first course is May and November, and the news course will be August, I think. And it's the sum total of everything. And the other good news is I've been badgering my bloody publisher to update my book, because it's been out of print for ages. And I updated it just post-COVID, and they've been sitting on it. And then when we said, you do realise we'll buy 300 copies of this, because that's what we bought the first time, they went, oh, okay, we'll prioritise it. So now my book should be out. Well, it'll be out in 2023, I expect. So there'll be a new, more available copy of that. And that's me trying to update my knowledge about seals. I want everyone to be able to know about seals and love them, because they're amazing.
Well, I know, Sue, that there's a couple of people on the Zoom chat who've done your Field Studies Counselling course already from the Isle of Man.
Ooh.
So yeah.
Okay. I hope it was good feedback.
Yes, they said wonderful things. I wouldn't expect anything less.
Well, that's all right then. But if they didn't, you can keep it to yourself, or you can tell me privately, because actually I need to learn. You know, I need negative feedback to get better, or challenging questions.
Okay. Hi Sue, thank you so much. That was amazing. I was going to ask you about the tracking the pups. You mentioned that you sort of, once they've got their adult markings, and you can photograph that and that pattern. Have you had much success in sort of building a bigger life history with those pop photos later on? No.
Pathetic success, really pathetic success. And that could be for a few reasons. Basically, I'm going to be completely honest with you, it's a brilliant question. Only 2. Okay, and all the time I've been doing this, I've only tracked 2 through to juvenile age. One of them was a female and one of them was a male. The female I saw, coincidentally, both disappeared for 17 months and reappeared 17 months later after they left the beach. And they returned to their pupping beach, their beach of their birth, which was really interesting. The female I never really saw. I saw her for a few months and I never really saw her again, which is bizarre. Might be in the Isle of Man, who knows. The male is still going, and he's taught us some interesting new stuff. So he was 2007. He's still going strong. Well, I saw him last year anyway. I don't know if I've seen him this year. Rocket, he's called. I saw him the day he was born. I didn't think he was going to survive, because his mother was bleeding from her right eye when she had him. I watched him trying to feed, and he just couldn't get the hang of it. You know what newborn pups are like. They just don't know what they should be doing, and the mums try really hard, and mum's getting really stressed, and she even hauled over the top of him. And I just thought, oh my God, she's going to kill him. This is just, oh my God, I can't bear to watch this. And Terry, bless him, he's now dead, but Terry was surveying with me, and he said, Sue, just trust them. They know what they're doing. They've been doing it for millennia. Leave them alone, go to bed. So I went home, came back the following morning, and Rocket was feeding. Of course he was feeding. I know it doesn't always happen that well, but Rocket did. And he grew ridiculously quickly. He's still alive. And at age 10, what do they start doing around age 10? They try to beach master. But science says that females go back to their place of birth to have their pups. Males, therefore, to avoid diminishing the gene pool, should go somewhere else to mate. What was Rocket doing? Trying to beachmaster on the beach of his birth. So he could potentially be trying to beachmaster with his sisters and with his mother or with his aunt and all that kind of stuff. I've since discovered actually that inbreeding is not considered by scientific papers to be an issue for seals, which is quite interesting and very counterintuitive. So I don't know, but anyway, he stopped. I think it was just that he felt comfortable on his beach of his birth, so he tried to beachmaster there. He tried out his skills, and now he's buggered off during the pupping season because he's trying to beachmaster at a proper site, which is probably what he should be doing. But that's it, just 2. So that's why being able to track as they molt, you just get a little bit of pattern on the neck sometimes, because they usually molt on their heads first, don't they, or by their foreflippers. You get a little bit of pattern, and then if they stay on the beach long enough, which is the problem, they often don't in Cornwall because of our intertidal nature. I guess they might not in the Isle of Man, but I don't know. They don't hang around very long, so you don't get that full molt and you don't get the pattern, so you can't track them. And I think that's why it's happened. The other thing is that they might be dying. And that's the worrying thing, because if they're dying, I mean, I've only just had this thought. We've got great numbers of pups in Cornwall. We've got the Cornwall Wildlife Trust Marine Standings Network, JACs, as you know, who are second to none. We've got the number of whitecoat deaths and molted pup deaths. And if you start comparing them, the figures are shocking, and we've just gone into the red. So with more dead pups being recorded than were born in Cornwall. Now that's worrying. It's not a closed population though, because we could be getting post-weaning dispersal pups from the Isle of Man coming in, from Wales coming in, from the Scillies particularly coming in. So it's not a closed population, but nevertheless, the number of pups being born in Cornwall is being outweighed by the number of dead ones. Maybe that's why we're not tracking them, and maybe we've got high pupping and fecundity because the population's under stress. Just don't know, do we? There's so much we don't know.
Yeah, we started to photograph the pups now as well, so that's it's good to know you've got 2.
Have you had any success yet?
No.
We've only really got breeders from the past few years, so
Okay, so 17 months. You wouldn't see them potentially for 17 months anyway. But it's exciting. Do keep me posted on that, because that would be really great. Yeah, really interesting but challenging work. And of course, identifying juveniles is notoriously hard, isn't it? Because their patterns tend to be less contrasty. It's only when they get older as a female that their patterns get better. It's ironic that we've got the male that we've managed to re-ID, but it's because he had a very distinctive couple of flicks on his neck, and they stuck in my head, and they're really hard to see now as an adult, but he's got an infection on his bum, which makes him easily identifiable now, so that's probably why. Yeah. Anyway, have you had enough yet? Yes, another question. Yes.
Let's ask, are there patterns like fingerprints, and
Yes.
therefore they're all different?
Yes.
Yes.
That's how we do the ID, because really good point. Yes, if I didn't clarify that enough, every seal has a unique fur pattern, and that was the sentence that somebody uttered to me that changed my life, because now I knew how to do it. Match patterns, and anyone can do it, really. Yeah.
Thank you.
Someone at the back.
Hi Sue, can I ask you a
Hello,
question?
Richard. Yes, you can.
Yeah, great talk, thank you. I was wondering if you had any insights on the kind of sounds and noises that the seals make. Normally you see them from a distance and it's all very visual, but what do they actually sound like?
Okay, impression. Here we go. So this is a female seal telling another seal to get lost. Woo! Do you not get howling like that on your beaches? Woo! Yeah. People think that the seals are singing. It's very nice that they think seals are singing, but actually they're telling their friends to get lost and get out of their personal space. That's females. Quite high pitched. Woo! Males. I'm less good at the males, to be fair. You get a lot of that. And some of that. But they're always much more guttural and deep sounds. And the males will do that when they're trying to compete for beach mastering and see who's the strongest on the beach. And the other sound they make, I saw this today, I find it fascinating. It's new science. The Sea Mammal Research Unit have only recently, relatively last 2 or 3 years, reported on this body slapping. Have you seen any body slapping by males? They're usually sub-adult males in my experience. And what they do is they haul, but they're stationary. So they just go bang, 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 bang. And what they usually get a splash with it, which is why you can hear, you know, because they do it in a kind of like in a pool or a wet bit of sand, and you hear the splash and the bang. But apparently that seismic movement, vibration, goes through the sand, and it tells seals up to 50 meters away how strong they are. Which is why I think sub-adults do it. I think the adolescents are doing it, just trying to show that they're big and strong when they're not really, you know, they're just trying to show off and compete, a bit like I guess we do. But yeah, so that's, yeah, those are the main sounds, and they're usually males competing with each other, or females telling males, or telling other females, or telling other juveniles to get lost, in my experience. There will always be exceptions, but communication is so complicated. That's the verbal stuff. The non-verbal body language is fascinating. And how I know that seals have body language communication is because we once had a really fantastic beach master. We didn't realise how good he was until he left. You don't realise what good leadership is like until it's gone. We used to have lovely chilled haul outs and calm seals. Everybody knew their place. There was no competition for dominance. And then for some reason, all of a sudden, one day, a different beach master. Oh, it was chaos. Everyone didn't know their place. They were all trying to challenge him. There were bleeding flippers everywhere because seals were getting bitten by these wannabe beach masters challenging the male. And then all of a sudden, the ex-beach master returned to the beach. And it was like, oh, W's back. How exciting is that? But he snuck up under the cliff. The beach master was in the middle of the beach, about 30 to 40 meters away. And he snuck up under the cliff. And it was like that game you play when you're children. You try and sneak up on the person, and when they turn around, you have to freeze. It was like that. Every time the beach master looked at the ex-beach master, he would freeze. He even rolled over in the sand while the beach master wasn't looking to camouflage himself. So he was much less visible to us. I'm sure the same true for the beach master. And then all of a sudden, the two of them made eye contact. And W turned tail and legged it into the sea. I only saw him once after that, hauled on a beach where I've never seen a seal hauled before, and we've not seen him since. So that communication over meters on the beach was enough to send him, the ex-beach master, whatever his X factor was, he lost it, and he just turned tail and disappeared. So communication over space is something that they can easily do as well. Find it fascinating. I did have one other thing that I was going to say about pollutants, but I realised there's a question at the back, isn't there? Sorry, been waiting patiently.
Questions about pollution as well. Just with the development and expansion of the beach buddies on the Isle of Man, could that be linked with the improvement of the seal population on the Isle of Man because there's less plastic waste to cause them damage?
Okay.
I don't know how well Cornwall accommodates the plastic waste and how much like beach buddies you've got in Cornwall.
Very good question. Lara, could you just repeat for me what there was something that had diminished that made the Manx populations get better? What was it that had decreased?
We're just saying we've got Beach Buddies, who is a charity organisation who clean the beaches here. So we wonder if that's linked with good seal numbers. And
what about as well your water quality? Has your sewage waste directly untreated sewage got any better? I don't know, but ours round Cornwall has.
Yes, ours has improved in some areas,
except when there's a storm.
Yes, yeah, except when there's a storm. Yes,
yeah,
it has improved.
So I think maybe water quality has helped seal populations increase. I think they're not increasing everywhere. In the north of Scotland, they're not increasing, probably because sand eel populations have plummeted up there. Sea Mammal Research Unit said at a meeting that I was at recently that maybe seal populations are moving south, which means they're abandoning some of those great big areas in Orkney and Shetland and maybe in the Monarchs and places like that and moving south. And maybe that's why the east coast of the North Sea has got an increasing population. You know, we've stopped killing them. You know, we used to shoot them in the 60s in Cornwall. You know, we've stopped killing them. That's helped the numbers to rebound. Great. Maybe they're recolonizing the sites. But to answer your specific plastics question, we're on the first point of contact for the Gulf Stream, which comes from America. So it's almost like it doesn't matter how much plastic, well, it does matter, obviously, how much plastic we take off the beaches. And we do have a Cornwall Plastic Pollution Coalition who clean beaches and removed, I mean, they've got a figure, it's something like 35 tonnes last year of plastic removed from the beach, but it just keeps coming in on the Gulf Stream. And that's why we think we have the second highest rate of seal entanglement anywhere in the world, because of the Gulf Stream. So it's not just our local intense inshore fisheries losing nets, but it's nets coming over from America that are washing up on our shores and causing entanglement as well. So the ghost gear surveys that we did over 4 years showed that the first year, before we really targeted a massive cleanup, the first year it looked like we had historical and new stuff. And the second, third and fourth year, it looked like we just got new stuff because the amount was considerably less than it had been the first year. So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure a reduction in plastic is helping, but I just recently learned an absolutely terrifying statistic, which was uttered by a fisherman. So we get rolled out when somebody wants to show the impacts of plastics on animals. And I was rolled out by Keep Britain Tidy for National BBC News recently. It's on our YouTube channel. I've put the clip on there. But one of the fishermen on that clip was asked, how many nets do you lose? And, what did you used to do when you end of life gear? And he's a trawl fisherman, and he said that, every 6 to 12 months, which kind of suggested that they only use their gear for a very short period of time before it's not usable anymore. They now bring it to shore for it to be recycled. So what did they do with it before? And we all know what the answer is to that. And there's all of that stuff on the seabed somewhere. I mean, we're lucky in Cornwall. We've got Fathoms Free, we've got Clean Ocean Sailing, we've got Ghostbusters, and there's another one that I've now forgotten to mention. 4 really big ghost gear and plastics cleanup groups who are doing a fantastic job. But if they've got commercial fishing, industrial fishing gear from I don't know how many years, decades and decades, that's out there just breaking down into smaller and smaller pieces, we've really got a big job on our hands, haven't we?
We've had reports that the southwest of Scotland have noticed a lot less plastic turning up on their beaches because of what's been going on with the beach buddies on the Isle of Man.
Oh, how fabulous is that? Well done. Well done to all your beach buddies. We need more beach buddies, and it's a great name. And yeah, you should be very proud of that. It's great. I mean, the other thing that I once learned from fishermen, I once asked a fisherman who was drunk at a bar, and I said, I don't usually do this, but I did say, so what percentage of your nets get lost? And he said, well, they all do. Eventually, they all get lost. And it's like 100% of all fishing nets have either been lost or dumped at sea. I don't want to finish on that. I need to tell you something nice. One of the things that we've got on our shop, I have to share this because I just love it. And it's not because it's on our shop, but this is a transformer seal, and you can see it's a white-coated seal pup. And we're now using it to teach kids because look, what it does is it transforms. And it transforms into a grey seal pup. So how cool is that? I can't begin to get my head around how somebody designs an article like that enables that to happen. It's phenomenal, isn't it? How do you design and then make something that clever? I just love it.
Right, on that lovely happy note,
Yes.
I'll stop. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Sue, for doing the talk tonight. And, you know, COVID has not been a good time, but the one nice thing about it is it has enabled this technology and this sharing of information and knowledge. And being able to do this with you tonight is been a wonderful example of that. And, you know, we at the Trust, at Manx Wildlife Trust, do a lot with our seals, but you inspire me to do so much more. We monitor the seals on the car for a short period of time during the pupping season, but you cover the whole of Cornwall with all your volunteers all year round. So I'm looking for volunteers to do some seal sitting. But no, I mean, it's amazing the work that you do and that you've been championing for seals across, you know, nationally and also internationally. So you really are an inspiration to me and I hope to everyone else here tonight on Zoom as well. So thank you again so much for giving up your time and for just being so enthusiastic about seals. It's lovely when people get excited about seals, because I get excited about seals.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure, Lara. I think we need to get you to join the Seal Alliance. I think that's something we can. We've now got two other wildlife trusts on it, Kent Wildlife Trust and Dorset. So it's a trodden path for wildlife trusts. But also, Lara, thank you for being so inspiring too. You know, back at you, because it's great that you survey your pups. It would be very easy for it to be too hard a job for you to do during the pupping season. And honestly, seals like, it's making me tingle, but seals like Tulip Bell are what inspire all of our volunteers to make a difference. And that's what that's the power of photo ID. It creates an individual seal with an emotional response that encourages behaviour change. And that's what we're all doing, isn't it, for marine conservation? So thank you, Lara. You know, I'm sorry I haven't looked at all the other photos, but we will now, especially if we can get them to PowerPoint.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite. Lovely to talk to you. Fabulous to meet you all. Thank you. Please send me some feedback. Do a survey monkey for me.
Will do. Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you everyone online and everyone.